92 to 95 FM and 810 medium wave. The latest releases in Film 90.
It was about this time of day here in Dunblane on Wednesday, March the 13th, that after hours of waiting, the families and friends of Primary 1 finally knew the worst. 16 of their 5- and 6-year-olds and their teacher dead. Others terribly injured after a gun attack that morning in the gymnasium of the town's primary school. A shocked world was, still is, mute, mystified at the enormity of what had happened. 7 months on, the people of Dunblane have come to church. Those most closely affected are here at the cathedral for a special service of remembrance. But because their loss has involved everybody, others have gathered at churches all round the town so that the whole community, linked by television monitors, can join in this cathedral service. It has always been the intention of those closest to the tragedy to have a memorial service, and its ingredients today, its tone, its flavour, will very much express the wishes of the families. They had expected the final spotlight on Dunblane, Lord Cullen's report, to have passed by now. That was not to be. But the hope is that what is said and felt and celebrated here today will carry them through that inevitably difficult time and then beyond to the future, to the rest of their lives. For all the grandeur of the cathedral, this is an intimate occasion. There are only 3 special guests joining the families and their friends here. Dunblane's 2 politicians, the Secretary of State for Scotland, Michael Forsyth, who's MP for the area, and the Shadow Scottish Secretary, George Robertson, for whom Dunblane is home, and His Royal Highness Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, here to represent the royal family. It was just a few days before the arrival of spring in this little town at the gateway to the Highlands. The chilly calm of a routine weekday morning was broken as police cars and ambulances tore through the streets. Rumours that something terrible had happened spread quickly, drawing parents and relatives to the gates of Dunblane Primary School. The news that emerged of a gun attack which had killed so many of the children of Primary 1 and their teacher added a horrifying chapter to the history of this ancient place of refuge and hospitality. And in the unremitting glare of the media, Dunblane was in every headline, the latest and saddest of the world's trouble spots. Global media coverage was not always easy to live with, but it brought with it the compassion of the whole world. No words or pictures, though, could do justice to the experience of those March days for the people of Dunblane. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, relatives and friends, neighbours and fellow townspeople. From the time the news broke, the ever-open door of Dunblane's cathedral was the most visible of a number of places where people would be available day and night to try to offer comfort. A vigil with several hours of simple prayers and music drew thousands of people from all over Scotland, including church leaders, standing quietly in the streets through a long, cold evening. And whilst the sympathy of the world was unabated, signs of recovery, courage, and resilience emerged. But the terrible reality still has to be borne by all who first grieved in Dunblane in those March days. This was to be powerfully expressed during the service broadcast from the cathedral on the following Sunday. The minister, the Reverend Colin McIntosh, named each life lost.
Victoria Clydesdale, Emma Crozier, Melissa Curry, Charlotte Dunn, Kevin Hazel, Ross Irvin, David Kerr, Larry Macbeth, Brett McKinnon, Abigail McLennan, Emily Morton, Sophie North, John Petrie, Joanna Ross, Hannah Scott, Megan Turner, and their teacher, Mrs. Gwen Meir.
Colin McIntosh, what part did you feel that the church was able to play at the time of the tragedy?
I think in those first days, the important thing was simply that the church was here. The church was already known to most people in Dunblane. Whether they belonged to it or not, it was regarded as their church. I'm speaking of all the churches. And for us, I think the important thing was simply to be there with people, to offer what help and support we could, but perhaps also to offer them a place they could come to be together, and a means by which they could express how they felt at that time when words were so hard to find. There were perhaps other ways in which grief, shock, despair could be expressed. And I think the church perhaps did have a role in those first very crucial days.
As time has gone on, has that role continued?
I think that role has continued. The churches are still here and always will be. After many others perhaps have left Dunblane, the churches will still be here. And our role in supporting and caring, as people want us to do that, our task is to respond to them. That role has been continuing in many, sometimes quiet and unseen ways, yes.
Where is the community at, so to speak, these days? What are people's feelings now?
The community is in many ways at a difficult stage. 6-7 months further on, we are discovering that there are different rates of recovery. That is to be expected, that is inevitable. In many ways, for some, life is beginning to go on as normal. Others find that life cannot go on quite as yet. And that creates its own difficulties and its own problems. There is tension within the community with regard to the hurdles we know have yet to be overcome. And this forthcoming service in itself, while we hope it will serve an important need, it too creates a certain level of tension.
What are you hoping to achieve, if that's the right word, with this service?
The service has been given a title, Out of Darkness into Light. And on the order of service, on the front page, there is an image of a fold of hills. And this is the view you get if you're standing down in the cars near Stirling, looking up towards Dunblane. Dunblane is tucked in the fold of hills. But the hills are in darkness, and that is where we are at the moment, still in darkness. But as you go through each page of the order of service, the sun is beginning to appear, and in each successive page, the sun is rising higher, until at the very end, where the names of all our children and their teacher are listed, the sun is at its highest. And I think that represents what we are hoping the service might achieve. We are still in many ways in darkness, but we are coming together to express that we believe we will reach the light.